But unexpectedly, Gloria was so desperate in the previous life that our parents, without even asking my opinion, forced me to marry into the poor and fallen Perez family. Gloria, are you sure? My mother, upon hearing her words, still seemed a bit incredulous. After all, just a moment ago, she was crying and refusing to marry Charles Perez. Yes, Regina was betrothed to the Lowell family first, and I was betrothed to the Perez family later. This is fair. Mother wiped away her tears and said with relief, Gloria, you've grown up and become sensible. But I saw a smile slowly forming on Gloria's face. Of course, I knew why she was willing to marry someone she didn't want this time. In the previous life, she married Lambert Lowell as wished. She was full of glory. But after marriage, she found out that Lambert had a cousin, Esther Hill, who he had secretly betrothed to. However, the Lowell family didn't leak a single word about it. After all, for a noble family, reputation was the most important. If it was known that Lambert had a concubine before getting married, many noble ladies would have to consider whether this marriage was worth the risk. On the wedding night, although Lambert stayed in Gloria's room, he secretly went to Esther in the middle of the night. A month later, he made Esther his concubine. At first, Gloria didn't take it seriously. She thought that a distant cousin without a powerful family background couldn't cause any trouble. But she was wrong. Esther was no pushover. Having been raised in the Lowell family for many years, Esther had won the favor of everyone in the household, Lambert included. Gloria turned jealous, slandering, and being abusive towards Esther, driving Lambert to complete exasperation. Later, she listened to our mother and insisted on taking charge of the household, only to find that no one listened to her. Desperately, Gloria wanted to have a child to secure her position. She drugged Lambert, which somehow helped Esther get pregnant first. In a fit of rage, Gloria tried to abort Esther's baby. Before Esther could take the medicine, Lambert found out and hit Gloria, confining her to the courtyard. Gloria was not willing to accept this. Gloria caused chaos in the Lowell family, even nearly driving Lambert's mother to death. She also gained a reputation as a bad wife and was ridiculed for not having slept with her husband after many years of marriage. Later, we met at a banquet. At that time, Charles had become the prime minister with absolute power, doting on me alone. Even in the capital, it was known to all that he loved me very much. I was surrounded by adoration, while Gloria was in a pitiful state. Thus, she looked at me with extreme hatred. She was the center of attention from childhood, but ended up disliked despite her choosing a better family. Moreover, Charles was the one she was supposed to marry. Why? Hatred clouded her mind, so she exploited my visit to our parents to deeply stab me off guard. But in this new life, she wouldn't really think that marrying Charles meant exclusive love, would she? Charles was a madman. I knew it on our wedding night. Before I realized what happened, my hands and feet were chained with cold iron. Charles showed up, covered my eyes, and whispered in my ear, Regina, you belong to me for the rest of your life. Die with me, will you? I struggled a little, causing the chains to jingle. His cold hand stroked my face, his words filled with excitement. I like it when you struggle. Then he leaned down, pecking my neck. Later, the jingling of the chains echoed throughout the night. My whole body was covered in bruises from his bites. He restricted my freedom, imprisoning me in the courtyard and torturing me every night. I wanted to escape, but I couldn't. But now, I sincerely thanked Gloria. Wasn't it wonderful not to have to serve a man? Gloria and I got married the same day. On the day she left, Gloria smiled meaningfully, Regina, cherish your last good time. Her face was irrepressible. It's normal for men to have multiple concubines. I'm sure you will be generous. As she wished, I showed shock, which pleased her more. But I gave her a gift, too. I put a salve into her hand and smiled, Gloria, you will thank me for this. Her smile froze because she was confused. Charles loved to torture others. I did wonder if Gloria could endure it. But soon, she ignored the strange feeling and snorted, looking forward to her bright future. Regina, I will be the envy of everyone, the wife of the most powerful man. You, on the other hand, will be fighting with another woman in the Lowell family, being tormented and dumped. I glanced at her. She was reborn, but she was still a fool. Compared to the realization of self-freedom, I didn't care about any man. As Gloria experienced in her previous life, Esther didn't come to Lambert's room when I was there. She was a smart woman who stayed with Lambert for so many years without a status. She was patient enough. Two women fighting over a man in public was embarrassing when it got out. Besides, I didn't mean to fight with her. After all, the Lowell family had Lambert's mother in charge. Lambert had loved a woman who, even in his whole previous life, had never passed Gloria over. I didn't have to do anything. This was the life I dreamed of a lifetime ago. So, after drinking wine with Lambert, I said, Lord Lowell, I know you have a crush on someone else, and I won't make a fuss. I just hope you do not embarrass me. If you're going to your cousin, please tell the maids in advance to prepare hot water for me and leave quietly. I won't bother you. Then, I prepared everything in case I'd get embarrassed tomorrow. My series of actions stunned Lambert. After a while, he came back to his senses, and his expression was relieved. He stepped back, hands clasped. Thank you, Lady Regina. I promise to keep you safe and respectable in the Lowell manor. Well, the Lowell son was not a fool. Even though the Lowell family kept the affair between him and Esther under wraps, it was impossible to avoid a leak from some mouthy servant. I knew what was going on between them, but I still chose to marry him. Lambert knew I wasn't doing it for him. In the previous life, he also stayed in Gloria's room until late at night. It was Gloria who rushed to Esther's room the next day, causing a huge commotion, and everyone found out she hadn't slept with Lambert. From then on, she and the Lowell family were on opposite sides. Lambert didn't sleep with me in the bed, but carried the quilt to the sofa. When it was about time, he called for hot water and didn't leave my room until dawn. Before he left, I stopped him. Lord Lowell, please explain to your cousin clearly. Lambert was actually a man who was devoted and loyal, and I didn't want to fight with Esther over him. A woman's battlefield was not just within a manor. My path to freedom would need her help in the future. It was Lambert who accompanied me on my return home. In the carriage, he finally asked the question he longed to. I don't quite understand. Lady Regina, what exactly do you want? I smiled slightly. Lord Lowell, the answer is not important at this moment. I know what you want to do. I just want to tell you that a concubine cannot become your legal wife. He frowned, looking at me with a cold and alert expression. I chuckled. Lord Lowell, don't be nervous. I promise you that for everything you want to give her, I will surely fulfill your wish. I will make your cousin marry into the Lowell family as your legal wife, not just a concubine. He looked at me in disbelief. There was some shame and embarrassment in his eyes as if his thoughts had been seen through. Of course, I knew that his dream was for Esther to become his wife. Lambert raised his hand, half bent. Lady Regina, whatever you want in the future, I'll try my best to help. I smoothed my sleeves, smiling. Lord Lowell, hope we cooperate well. Since I had a second chance, I wouldn't follow the same path as the previous life. Fighting with Esther like Gloria did and becoming a laughingstock? How boring. I wanted to admire the flowers in spring, the rain in summer, the fallen leaves in autumn, and the first snow in winter. Women didn't necessarily revolve around men. A horse's neigh interrupted my thoughts. Lambert lifted the curtain, and I saw the person riding the horse in front with a sinister look directed at me. It was Charles. At the sight of him, I felt suffocated with the familiar feeling of being imprisoned from my previous life. I felt like I couldn't breathe. A terrifying thought suddenly popped into my mind. Could Charles have also been reborn? Charles. Lambert looked at Charles and said, what a coincidence. But Charles merely gave him a cursory glance, nodded, and then rode away. The look he had given me just now seemed to be my imagination. Lambert lowered the curtain and seemed to explain, Charles is not simple. Don't be fooled by his current low rank. He's in this position for a reason, and it must be someone's deliberate arrangement. I knew what he meant. Charles was a pawn of Prince Edward. A sharp blade. He specialized in doing things that Prince Edward couldn't do in public. As Prince Edward sought to command an army against barbarian foes, Charles contributed vital strategies. That was why he could become the prime minister in such a short time. I had seen him killing people. I knew how cruel and ruthless he was. The way he looked at me always made me shiver. Thinking of his departing figure, I felt a bit uneasy. As we arrived at the Loron Manor, Charles and Gloria had already been there. Seeing that Lambert and I didn't have a falling out, Gloria couldn't hide her disappointment. In a corner where no one could notice, she quietly approached me and spoke in a low voice. Regina, I heard that Lord Lowell has a cousin living with him. Have you seen her? Her smile was laced with sarcasm and schadenfreude. I hope Lord Lowell didn't sneak away on your wedding night, leaving you alone in the room. I looked at her, my smile unfathomable. Gloria, did you have someone spying on the Lowell Manor? I haven't heard of any cousin. How do you know more than I do? And on the wedding night, did you see from under my bed if Lord Lowell was in my room? You. She was speechless with anger. I snorted, mind your tongue. Is that how our parents taught you? Gloria didn't expect me to bring up the rules, and her face turned slightly red. She raised her voice a little. I was just concerned about you, Regina. Why are you being so aggressive? Only when I feel warm could your words be called concern. So Gloria, put away your schemes. I had been reborn, and I didn't want to be the lamb at the mercy of others. Likewise, I didn't want to be nice to Gloria, who killed me in the previous life. Perhaps because I, who was always well-behaved and respectful, had changed, Gloria seemed to think I was deliberately hiding my sorrow. Her face immediately brightened, and she pretended to casually pull at her collar. I glanced at it and saw a red mark. My fingers tightened. I suddenly thought of how Charles used to torture me, and a chill ran down my spine. Seeing my change in expression, Gloria said smugly, Regina, compared to high-ranking families, I think that being with someone who loves me for a lifetime is more valuable. After all, no woman wants their husband to sleep in someone else's room every day, right? She was hinting at something. I withdrew my gaze and sincerely wished her happiness with Charles. I hoped she could be with Charles, that lunatic, for good. However, while fetching something from my room, I encountered Charles in the garden. There was no one around. I nodded cautiously at him and then walked forward with my head lowered. Sister? I looked up and met his slightly cold and sinister gaze. This address was full of playfulness. I involuntarily took a few steps back. Charles raised his eyebrows, a cold smile playing on his face. Regina, you seem quite afraid of me, your sister's husband? He emphasized the words, your sister's husband, deliberately. You're overthinking it. I tried to keep my voice steady and my expression calm. Gloria is in the front hall. It wouldn't be proper for you to go any further. I averted my gaze, not intending to linger. As I wanted to walk away, I caught a glimpse of Charles's hand clenching tightly. It seemed he was holding something. Moving further away, I could still hear his low, mocking voice. Your sister's husband. Interesting. On the way back, my mind was filled with the image of myself being tied up in my previous life. I couldn't understand why, despite being cautious and well-read since childhood, proficient in various skills, and groomed as a lady of high status, I would be confined in that courtyard, unable to fulfill my potential. Before I could break free from that prison, I was stabbed to death with a single blade. My heart felt as if it were being squeezed in someone's hand, making it hard for me to breathe. Suddenly, the carriage jolted. I held onto the sides to steady myself. My lord, my lady, some small stones are blocking the way. Are you all right? Lambert responded, yeah. I, however, frowned. Why would there be small stones blocking the way at the entrance of the Lowell Manor? Suppressing my doubts, I felt that I couldn't just wait for my fate. I needed to make plans for myself sooner. So I turned to Lambert. Lord Lowell, could you introduce me to your cousin? I have something to discuss with her. He looked hesitant. I didn't want to play guessing games and said firmly, Lord Lowell, do you know that those barbarians from the north have been causing trouble at the border for days? Soon, they will cross the border river and head straight for Danstow. I need to see your cousin for this matter. If you trust me, I promise what I said before was not just empty talk. The fact that Esther was being raised in the Lowell family was not known to many in the capital. He was protecting her, and their affection was deep. I could understand that. Lord Lowell, when I was young, I accompanied my father to read some military books and understand some military affairs. This time, the barbarians are well prepared, and it will surely be a fierce battle. But for you, my lord, this is also a good opportunity. In my previous life, Prince Edward personally led the troops against the barbarian invasion, with Charles in tow. But Charles took me along. The war lasted for a year before the barbarians were repelled. Because of this war, Prince Edward's supporters gained the upper hand over the third prince and became the top candidate for the throne. The Lowell family had always remained neutral in the struggle for the throne. But everything required taking risks. I was gambling, wondering if Lambert dared to take the risk for Esther. Later that day, I met Esther. She truly had a beautiful appearance, with a gentle demeanor and a soft voice, like a spring breeze blowing into my heart. No wonder Lambert was so deeply in love with her. I didn't want to make too many enemies, so I came straight to the point. Esther, you don't need to see me as an enemy. I have no romantic feelings for Lord Lowell and never will. And I will help you both. Esther's eyes brightened. She then immediately showed a look of shame. I'm sorry. We were both intelligent, and she understood immediately. I didn't want to dwell on it, interrupting her. It's over. Esther, do you want to become Lambert's legal wife? Esther looked up in surprise, staring at me in disbelief. I chuckled. I told Lord Lowell that I would help him marry you. It's not a joke, but it comes with a price. Do you want to hear it? She straightened up and nodded. I'm all ears. In my previous life, I actually met Esther once. It was at that banquet where Lambert brought Gloria and Esther together. Gloria was furious about it. At the banquet, a young master suddenly had an epileptic seizure and was convulsing on the ground. Then, Esther stepped forward, pushed aside the crowd, disregarding the danger and filth, and cleared his mouth and nose, loosening his clothes. She then picked him up from behind, held his stomach, and began to rock him up and down. Finally, a small bone stuck in his throat was spat out. Later, I learned that she knew medicine. And I realized that no one was perfect. Esther was jealous to harm me, but she also had a kind and upright side. So I gently took her hand. It's a risky move, but the chances of success are high. I haven't told Lord Lowell about this plan. You two are close, so I think it's better for you to discuss it with him. Esther seemed to be considering it, but I saw the glimmer in her eyes. I told her the plan in detail. When she was about to leave, she asked me, even so, Lady Regina, is it worth it? I smiled. Compared to love, I want freedom more. I will talk to Lambert about it. She looked at me steadily, no longer as vigilant as when she came. I nodded. Then let's wish that we can both get what we want. Sure.